You know, there are some stories whispered in the quietest corners of our minds. They're like dark folk tales, but they're not about enchanted forests or strange beasts. No, they're about the psyche itself. And today, we're going to journey into one of those tales, a story about the soul's deepest and most unsettling truths. Let's get started.
Right off the bat, this is the question that beats at the very heart of our story. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's a chilling thought, right? It kind of reframes our entire existence. It suggests that everything we do, all our striving, our building, our loving, it's all just a temporary fight against a much deeper, much quieter pull, a pull towards simply stopping.
So to explore this, we're going to follow a guide, a lone traveler. But they aren't journeying to some physical place on a map. No, they're going inward, into a psychic space, a kind of cathedral built not from stone and glass, but from everything the conscious mind has tried so desperately to bury and forget.
I want you to try and imagine this place. The story describes it as a thoracic cage of granite, like a living prison made of our own bones. This is the architecture of everything we've repressed. Every single fear, every forbidden desire, every trauma. They didn't just disappear. They became the pillars and the vaults of the silent, infinite world inside of us.
And at the very heart of this cathedral is its dark sacrament, the bitter bread of the id. Now, this isn't food for the body. It's nourishment for the soul's shadow. It's the pure essence of our most primal, chaotic self, the part our civilized mind looks at and calls poison.
So what do you do with this bread? Well, a ritual takes place here, one that's like a dark reflection of a holy communion. This isn't about connecting with some higher power. It's about connecting with the lowest, most fundamental parts of yourself. It's a communion with that monster we all pretend isn't living inside of us.
The whole ritual is really a process of surrender. It all starts when the traveler just stops running, stops fleeing from their own shadow, that internal double that follows us everywhere. Then they have to willingly consume the very thing they find most repulsive about themselves. This single act is a choice to let the ego's walls crumble and to finally, truly welcome the monster home.
And the consequence of this communion? Oh, it's absolutely catastrophic for the self as we know it. Imagine a huge dam holding back a chaotic, raging ocean. Well, consuming this bread blows a hole right through it. The raw, untamed energy of the id just floods everything, and the carefully constructed landscape of the psyche is completely washed away. The lines between me and not me just dissolve.
What happens in the aftermath is a violent, total destruction of identity. Everything the traveler thought they were, every ideal they clung to, it all just comes crashing down.
See, we all have what you could call a great mirror. It's that idealized image of who we think we are, virtuous, in control, a good person. Consuming the bitter bread shatters that mirror into a million pieces. The shards fall down into the unconscious, and each and every fragment reflects a hidden truth, a repressed memory. The traveler finally sees that their perfect self was just a costume, and underneath it all is this raw, mechanical, repetitive force.
So after all that shattering, what's left? Not much. The traveler is just emptied out. They're no longer a person with a story and a name and an identity. They're just a hollow vessel, a perfect mirror, reflecting nothing but the great, silent emptiness they just embraced.
But all of this destruction, this collapse of the ego, it wasn't just chaos for its own sake. No, it served a purpose. It revealed something way more fundamental. A hidden force that was always there, silently pulling everything downward, like a kind of psychic gravity.
And this force actually has a name, the death drive, or a thanatos. You can think of it as the silent architect of our psyche. It's this deep instinctual urge, not for pleasure or for more life, but for a return to an earlier state, a state of non-life, of inorganic stillness. It's the pullback to the quiet of a stone.
This really shows the core conflict happening inside all of us. Our ego, our conscious self, spends its entire existence striving, building complex stories, seeking more life, more experiences. But all the while, the death drive is there, like a constant, silent undertow, demanding the complete opposite: surrender, simplicity, and a return to the void.
This quote just perfectly captures that massive shift in perspective. We usually think of life as the default state, right? As the ocean itself. But from the perspective of the death drive, that's all wrong. Life isn't the ocean. It's just a brief, tiny ripple on the surface of an eternal, motionless silence.
So what happens when our traveler, who has now seen this deep truth, returns to the everyday world? Well, they don't come back healed or enlightened, not in the way you might think. They come back haunted.
They're fundamentally changed. I mean, they might look the same, but they are not the person who walked into that cathedral. They are now a walking vessel for that subterranean truth, carrying the silence and the dampness of the void right inside their bones.
And this changes how they see everything. The familiar becomes deeply, deeply unsettling. This is that concept of the unhomely. Your own house, the safest place you know, suddenly feels like it's haunted because you've seen the abyss it was built on top of. You now know the floors were never really solid to begin with.
And here it is. Here's the final, chilling turn. The traveler's story suddenly becomes our own. The tale suggests this isn't just some dark fantasy, that once you glimpse this mechanical, repetitive drive chugging away beneath the surface of your own mind, you realize you're not the one in control. You are the ghost in your own machine.
Which leaves us all with one last question to just sit with. We tend to think of the void, of stillness, as an absence, as emptiness. But what if it's not? What if that deep, primordial silence was never empty at all? What if it was always filled with a presence, with the rhythmic, pulsing heart of something vast, ancient, and utterly indifferent to our brief, flickering lives?